welcome to the special meeting of the Borough of Edwardsville Mayor and Council, today, May 29th, 2019, at 7:33 p.m. All the meeting to order. Have a roll call, please.
Mayor Crandra,
Here.
Councilperson Wu,
Here.
Stump, Savari,
Here.
Park, here, Aversa,
Here.
Poe, for attorney, clerk, and voters.
Okay, thank you. Let's begin, as we always begin, with the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please read into the record the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the rest of the host and the party. In time of this meeting, was legally given as a part of the clerk, the host of the board. And this is the same with the meeting of the
Thank you. So, let's begin with the 2019 budget work session. I want to welcome Mr. Pecchia and Steve Wilcox to our meeting. And Joe Marinello is our attorney. We haven't seen him yet, so we have to do 5 minutes worth of talking. So, we changed it a little bit this year. We're doing the budget work session first, and then we're opening up to the public after, so I think I need more moving forward to the public, so you could listen, and then whatever is discussed around the caucus table here, and actually be regulated by you. So, we have in front of us, and I know you don't have one in the public, right? You don't have a general budget. We have that budget, so I think maybe some preliminary questions for our finance committee chairperson, Councilwoman Savari, to the order. So, just generally speaking, have you met with each department, DPW, police, fire, borough? And,
When I met with the committee chair,
okay. Whoever chair of that committee. And so when were those meetings? I wasn't invited, so I don't know.
I don't know, I looked it up the other day. Actually, you were on the phone to the DPW one? You weren't on the phone to the DPW because there were 3 committee members contacting them. So, you couldn't have here.
And then, in terms of fiscal reach, maybe
For the record, also, Council President Poe,
so, in terms of DPW, who attended that?
Fire, actually, belongs to the council, so I have copies of all of them.
So the one thing that I usually see that I did not see this year was a budget request for each department. Is that available to you?
I think we're,
I'd like to have it. And the capital expenditure for each department? You have those?
We spoke about DPW, which is a truck,
Sorry.
and DPW is a we haven't decided yet, so we're going to talk to council about whether we're going to the police department to the vehicle, which is why we can.
could you speak to the bottom? Yeah, we can't do it today.
We have more microphones?
So the police department's requested 4 new vehicles, which it's in the process of happening right now. That's all coming out of the capital account, which I'm told by Chris that we have funds available to do that. These are SUVs. Not yet. Well, we're in the process of finding out that we have funds available, so nothing is actually taking place as far as I'm aware of as of yet.
Right, the issue last time we ordered the vehicle that we delivered Chief Choppy in August, and we didn't put it in service until towards the end of December. Somebody to come in and install lights, which frankly is difficult. But I wanted to, when we buy a vehicle, we start paying for that vehicle, we put it in the road, Right. How does that work?
If it's under state contract, the state basically will have the work on the bidding, and we will have to provide the specs and go out and bid, and purchase on the state contract.
Okay, and just going back to the DPW truck, how much was that cost? And it's a new vehicle?
Well, I think we were still going to talk about that as a council.
Okay. And then before police vehicles, what's the big one? About 50,000 per. Why isn't that a good way? We have more and more for
We're also spending a tremendous amount of money on repairs right now also.
Are we getting rid of any of the old vehicles?
Yes, we have a list of vehicles that we're going to put up. Lieutenant put the line in.
Maybe two more, we talked about 6 already.
I think the record action.
There was action.
That one was to be oxygen.
I had sent it to the previous supervisor.
Okay, were there any other capital expenditures that we,
Perhaps cameras, but I believe we can work those out. Security.
But he pulled it off the list.
I think I have sent something about that. Are we required to have body cams? Dash cams? Not required. Best practices. Who is that?
No?
What about fire?
No, matter of fact, they've taken a lot off their budget, was reduced by like $50,000 this year.
And so last year, they get rid of them.
I can't remember.
Capital transfers of $4,000.
No.
Anybody else?
There's anything that the building department may be, everyone's investing. That's strict.
When was the last update?
2018.
Is there for the capital expenditures requested for those primary departments being?
Well, basically, the four vehicles, there are 2 vehicles, so about 2,000 apiece, so that would be 200.
200 total for police?
200 for police, and the DPW vehicle, as I said before, is not discussed with council yet, it wasn't something that was so we haven't approved the price of it, it's not.
That's the final request for police, 200K? For the capital expenditures?
They're already active for the
Is it the final total request for the all capital expenditures? Because I think he knocked off the surveillance damage, right? So is that, are they going to ask for anything
As
else?
of now, it's a year that's about 2,000.
What are the verbs of buying?
So just to back up quickly, the money that we have available is we have an improvement fund in order to pay for that down payment in order to do more of this, right? So all this is going to come up again when we're looking to introduce the ordinance and we have a final project. The amount that's in the budget right now is $60,000, which is just the amount that was in the last year. That is over 5% down payment, so that's $1.2 million that it could potentially cover in capital. So once we do have the final list, we would have the introduction of the bond ordinance, adoption of public period, and then we would be authorized to use that.
So we have to go
Up to 1.2.
we replenish that this year.
We budget every year, and we do have money in capital improvement fund for previous years as well. We didn't do an ordinance last year, not in the scope of the plan. So there is also available money there. Each year you're typically going to budget what you want to use for your down payment in the immediate future before the next budget cycle.
Yeah, what was the carryover? So the 60K, the delta between the year before, you said 60K was left over.
The balance right now in the capital improvement fund is 77,000.
So the year before.
Well, because it carries over correctly. So this is some years of not going to full 60 or whatever the budget was in there. So if we budget 60,000 with $1 million ordinance, we put 50,000 down, we got 10,000 left over, but it carries over to the end of the year. So there might be some that go over what we had budgeted because we had leftover money in the previous years.
Yeah, I know in years past, Chris, you mentioned that you had pretty healthy debt levels based on just compared to other boroughs. Can you, this year, same question, how much are we servicing in terms of debt, principal repayment risk, and interest, and how do you how do you, when you say it's healthy, what is healthy as a point of reference? What kind of coverage is needed
Well,
for the debt?
the ceiling that you have is 3.5% your equalized valuation. We are at half for you here, where we are versus where we are allowed to go. That is about $17 million in net debt. Last year we paid a little over $1 million.
So 17 million represents 0.5%. So we can go all the way up to 7 times that? 3.5%.
We're lower. We're lower.
So 7 times that, we could go up to roughly 119 million and be at this seat.
Now, if you want to get.
Right.
What do you think of it? We don't want to...
I'm not thinking, I'm conservative.
Not the old heritage,
Very conservative.
Thank you for that. Do you know what our bond rating is?
They are, but I've really go through cycles with surrounds. I mean, we had surrounds 2016 and 17, we had it last year. The audit is not done, the financial statements are unaudited.
Whatever gives that terms.
They're not, because there were all kinds of problems with the state upgrades to our electronic systems here, and that wasn't finalized until I'll forward that to you.
Let's do right now.
And just for everybody knows, it's due June 30th, that's our deadline. Chris mentioned the new automated state systems for the gas ASD. It's anything like that. It's been a disaster. We were implemented last year. The budget was supposed to be on track last year. They scrapped it. The budget again was supposed to be on track this year. Scrapped it. Six, yes. The other issue with the audits is that GASB 45 was revised by GASB 75. That's information provided by the state government. That information is not the state was authoritative and hired them to provide analysis. As of today, the information is available to thousands of counties, other government agencies, so therefore, it hasn't been a single board to my knowledge finalized as a new payment. Well, the statutory deadline is June 30th. We had an issue with the school districts, which statutorily they're due December 5th. The State Department of Ed extended it 3 times, and they didn't get delivered finally for the same issue. GASB information required the state to slow and highly professional information or something. No.
Two of the main items here that make it come down from 18.1 million to 17.6 is the bonds, the note principal, and the bond principal. So those two have been reduced by a total of, from last year's budget, 140, right? Well, those are bonds that have matured?
Yes, so one of the bonds fell off, and then one of the notes fell off as well. So we didn't mature.
We've also taken the same thing back in the
How many years were those bonds? Typically,
Typically, it's based on the useful life of the equipment that's purchasing, so what ends up happening is you end up with, let's say, we get an ordinance this year for a bunch of new vehicles, it's 5-year useful life, and then we get an ordinance next year, we build a building that has a 30-year useful life. You'll lend the useful life from, when you go out for serial bonds, and that'll be the useful life of that bond at max. And that's most of the try to shorten it a little bit depending on what your,
I guess the three biggest items are sewer those plus the contingency, right? We removed the contingency, which we've had in the past.
well, last year was the first one of the year that we had it.
Is there any reason we removed it this year? Because we did have expenditures on the contingency last year.
So the contingency expenditures were primarily for potential litigation that we didn't know. We had an idea that there could be, but we didn't. Nothing had come to fruition yet, and there were no expenses yet. We had adopted the budget. We wanted a contingent just in case, which is exactly what the contingent is. This year, we have a better idea of what those expenses are going to be to some extent, and we that we inflated those individual line items quite a bit to accommodate that. So we don't have a contingency, but they are reflected where they should be in the budget.
Yeah, last year, I have another question. I remember we were at 17.9 million, and the final budget was at 18.1, right? Because I thought we had added 600,000 last year. For some reason, the final budget appeared as 18.1, which is 200,000 above the final. Do you know what happened there?
We had, I think, at least a dozen different iterations of the budget last year. I know that legal was one of the big conversations last year. We had started early in the year based on what our expenses were, and we were separating them out, and bills kept coming in at a faster pace than what that extrapolation would provide for the budget. So we increased that a couple times, and then we landed on adding the extra money in contingency. So the contingency was relatively new. That was towards the very end of the budget cycle last year. So that's 135 of the potentially 200 that we're talking about. I think that those numbers changed quite a bit throughout the consideration of the budget. Well, the adopted was 1,800, correct? And I don't believe that we had any amendments between the adjustment and adopted, so there were quite a few conversations before discussion where there were a lot of different versions of the budget in the cycle.
Last year we had some
Yeah, and that was as of May 1st. That wouldn't have changed very much. No, so this was as of when I ran that document, which was right on May 1st, May 2nd.
and that work.
We were still getting legal billing, primarily what it was. So the number that you see on this, the larger document, has the 12/31 cutoff. The number that you see in front of you here, I keep it running so that we have an idea of what our actual expenses are as they come in after the year is closed. The budget amount would be actual adopted. It's a running number and using May 1st as the date that was when
service provided.
and it slowed down. I mean, if you look at the curve of how the expenses are coming in, it goes pretty steeply down, but they do still come in, or something will happen where an invoice was sent not received, but they thought they sent it, and they follow up 6 months later and say, hey, what happened to this invoice that we sent you in December? You send it.
Do you know of any,
For 2018?
yeah,
None that I know of. Unless clearly it was for 2018 work performed, at this point we shouldn't proceed.
in terms of the, going back to, in terms of the total cap. Where would I find that?
Those aren't budget document items. They were correct. Correct. So that would be on, if you're looking at the summary, it's on page 2, it's not towards the bottom. And that summary is just a 2-page version of that 57-page document that you have in front of you. And towards the very bottom of the second page, you'll see
Sheet 27.
I wondered why when you present the numbers, for example, payment account principles, you don't actually count that account, what it's called.
This is a statutory document provided to the state, which is what they require. That information will be in the state. Separate document, that's what we have. Right, we prepare this for. Right, correct. We're doing the audit, but this is the unaudited.
But again, going back.
I'm sure we can get to that.
With the totals?
Yeah, the net debt was the 17.5 million.
Yeah, that's 17.5.
Correct. I mean, I can give you the breakdown of that 17.5, what's bond principal, what's open, but yeah, total 17.5.
What I'm really curious about is how is that going to change from 18 to 19? So right now, we're talking about the results. Or potentially as well. So what else do you envision bonding in 2019?
I'm the chair, but I'm...
Anybody can jump in.
So, it depends on what this council decides they want to do with a lot of things.
What's the part of?
Probably that's like people like the city church, like the city lights, it depends on what this council decides.
So those are always bonding.
They are, you know, like our own institution and all.
The bottom line is, the max we can put in cap is 1.2 million as of, so if you just use that number, then we'll figure out the rest.
So, yeah, I'm trying to find out what else we're thinking about, contemplating putting in CapEx.
I don't think this council is having this conversation. I mean, so this meeting is about budget, and I think
So what when we
We know we have a leverage of 1.2 million, and this council is going to decide, anything else that we talked about, or other opportunities?
I mean, I figure we're here, so we'll talk about it after.
I have to say, I really haven't focused on that.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so we'll have a date to do that. And then,
Yeah, just stay on the topic of capital. 6 years.
I was just going to post the debt.
That's fine, we'll stay in there.
For the debt, I'll put it down. So are we actually, the borough, financially paying the big terminal lease that we have now? For seniors to be retired? Are we financing that, or how are we paying?
Yeah, the plan is to do a 5 years emergency provided by statute.
Well, I was always told that your predecessor would agree with you that if you know about something, you can't.
Under the special emergency statute, providing for accrued vacation, sick, termination pay, or separation of duty is allowed by statute.
You're the expert, so I'll rely on that. Because we started the year without that. Council, without, the fire council,
You mean the money that the police officers earn? Is that what you're trying to say there? You want to make sure we're clear about it. It's not an award. It's just time earned.
No, well, we had taken it,
I'll make sure that
well,
that's...
actually, we had negated it because of what had happened last year. So it was no longer available to him, and therefore you awarded it to him.
Completely, yeah.
So you could have your view of life and I'll have mine, but mine is the more realistic.
Of course it is.
No, that's not what we're doing.
Well, it's money, and that translates into money. Every decision the council makes translates into money. So let's just be borrowing and pay
Well,
out.
I think we made it pretty clear that you would like that budget, did you not?
I definitely don't want a tax increase, but I also didn't want...
We also have $800,000 in legal fees, right, for the planning board and the affordable housing, and we could postpone on that too.
Well, you lawyered that up, you got an extra lawyer
No,
involved.
you lawyered it up.
No, you got an
These
extra
are
lawyer
your
involved.
lawyers.
No, Al Wunsch, and no one will ever believe you that Al Wunsch is my lawyer.
No, he's
That's
not.
comical.
Our Troutner is your lawyer, right? And he's charged us about $300,000.
Troutner is litigation counsel.
And he's your lawyer.
And how many affordable housing does he have?
And so is Jeff Serene, and you're appointed. So, and it's been very close, because you wanted to...
Well, no, because the state has saddled us with this, and it's expensive. I know, it's uncomfortable when you're wrong, and then I'm
Oh,
right. You don't like to talk
I am
about
so
it.
not wrong.
And also, whenever I say, well, every action, what you have to understand is, every action this council takes, when we vote, when we vote on things, it always translates into money. So if you give Choppy $700,000, you gotta pay
I
him.
didn't give him anything.
You
He
give
earned
Regan
it.
money, you gotta pay
That's
that.
his money.
Okay, so can we continue with this, or do you want to keep ranting on your political rage like you always do?
It's not raised.
It is.
It is raised.
It's sad and petty.
The facts have no rage.
Let's just get through our budget meeting, because that's what we're here for.
So I'm trying to understand the process, and I think I understand the process that you undertook. Just in terms of big picture, what was added to this budget that wasn't there before? Is there anything extraordinary? Oh, is there anything extraordinary that you want to talk about other than the terminal lease that you're funding? There's 4 vehicles for the police department.
We haven't bought any of the police.
No, that's not true. You said 3 before. Now it's down to
Yeah,
4.
it's over
Funny how that
three.
works.
Over 3, let's say that.
It didn't need...
Well, we ordered three, also added 3 buses, right?
Okay, let's talk about that.
So that was at the recommendation of the officer.
Are any of those SROs or that was
No, none of them are.
So how's the budget going to address the SROs?
I think as a council, we can talk about that in the next session.
We've done that.
No, we still have this.
Okay, well, we have to get the budget done. I understand it.
And I understand from what
Well, let me
we feel
finish.
is that there will be no SROs this year, because it is impossible to hire many police officers. You have to hire 6 police officers to do that. And he said that that's just not possible.
Well, the school is...
So, and the school is aware that that's not possible. Yes,
I know.
well, I don't know.
Well, look, I think that the school and the children and the teachers are very, very important, paramount, so
I think it is
If
true,
you're
and the
hiring-
school could put it in their budget also.
it's supposed to be a share.
You know,
It was supposed to be
actually,
a share.
no, the
Yeah.
council did not discuss that as a whole, and decided it was on share.
We
That's
discussed it,
something
we have
that
it in
community
the fund.
society that's what they do.
There's nothing more important than the safety of children and teachers.
Oh, we all agree. We all agree. on
Well,
that. We
that's
all
good.
agree that
It
it
should
should
not
be our
take-
police
It
officers.
should not take a year.
We don't all
to do.
necessarily agree, but this
It
council.
should not take a year. This
Can
is
we,
not rocket
can we,
science.
can we
Let's
move
just go
forward,
forward.
please? It's actually my husband's birthday today, and he was gracious to say, go to your meeting, so I would like to have an amicable meeting.
So we all
All right?
sacrifice our families.
That's great, but you know what? I know when it's your wife's birthday, you wouldn't be here, so let's, can we
I
move on,
actually was
please?
here for my wife's birthday, and I know it's Valentine's Day also.
And our others.
And around.
So let's just make it nice, okay?
Well, look, I think we're here to talk about a budget. We need to accommodate the needs of the community.
Again.
And one of the needs, let me finish. Let me finish. No, let me finish. One of the needs in the community is that they have security at the school. They
Which
came
they
to
currently
us.
have.
They don't have adequate security, as they told us.
They
And
don't
they
have
want
officers
arms.
with guns.
They want,
That's what they
they
want.
want school resources.
They want officers with guns.
And Officer Hill brought that was the way to go. And now we as a council have to budget for it. I'm not sure why you feel that you can ignore this.
No,
and what you
you
should.
don't.
We had this discussion in closed session, and this is not what we
They can
agreed
also
to.
pay for it out of their budget. And we can provide the police officers.
Look,
They
for
currently,
10 months out of the
they
year, yes,
currently
it's good,
pay
but they don't need it.
$50,000 a year for 2 officers at the school. Okay, it's going to cost substantially more to keep our officers. We all agree we've got to see our officers, but that's going to come at a cost.
Well, we have officers right
There's
now
no
who can
reason
rotate through
why
there.
it can't come out of the school.
I don't think you're talking about that.
We don't think so.
We're not the OIC. The OIC.
I'm not a police officer. I can't possibly tell him how to do his job.
Look, you have officers, you can just rotate through the school for 10
Mayor,
months out of the
it
year.
is not our job to tell Officer Hill how to rotate police
We
officers.
need resources. We need to give them.
I think you should have a conversation with Mr. Hill himself. And he will tell you that Because he wants to answer.
But that's not good.
Well, do you have any suggestions to make this tax flat and still provide?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, chopping $1 million, and you have the money.
Yeah.
I guess, so you have no answer.
That's a good answer.
That's a bad answer.
That's a good
It's
answer.
just a political answer.
Yeah.
It is a political answer for you guys, because
It's really
that's
not.
why you're at the table,
I'm
because you pay them
I'm
that
doing the
much.
right thing.
All right.
for everybody in this council.
Not by the children, parents, and school teachers.
Yes, we are.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are.
No, you're not.
All right, next item, Mayor, if you don't have one, let's just move on.
Well, do you have anything to contribute?
I
Other than
contribute
little
plenty,
comments
so-
on the end of the table there?
I'm done.
Nothing, right?
Okay,
You never do. No, you have anything to contribute? Do you have any budget issues?
I have them all, we put them all forward.
You did?
You want to continue with questions? Thank you.
We do.
Appreciate your
I realize that you don't have anything to add, but I'll take care of it. That's okay.
Do we have anything else to cover on the budget?
We do, actually.
So then let's move on, please.
Are you in a rush also?
I just don't like wasting time.
With respect to the police committee, with respect to the police committee on dispatcher, we talked about that many times before, the 4 officers that's being hired. Was there any consideration to have a dispatcher Lieutenant Hill, what did the, or Officer in Charge Hill, what was his comments about that? For what reason?
You'll have to ask that.
You're the liaison.
I'm telling you.
That's your job, to tell
I'm
us.
telling you. Mr. Anthony doesn't think it's feasible, he doesn't think it's wise, and you'll have to take it up with him for the rest of the year.
I also think it's not the appropriate time to probably decide a decision between that.
Okay, just so for everyone's knowledge, when you're a liaison to the council, with a department, you have to get past the first question. You can't just say, that's what he said, and then when we ask you what the reason is, you need to give a reason, because it's a logical extension of the first question, which is what the public needs to
Have you ever
understand.
been a liaison to anything?
I've been a liaison to the
Oh, that's
public.
an interesting, have you ever been there? Have you
I have
ever-
actually, to many people, to many places, to many...
On this council, for this town.
Absolutely, to this town.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's why your inexperience burns us so bad.
My experience has
I
actually
appreciate
done
that.
very well for us.
When you are a liaison for
Well,
something,
when you
let us know how to do it.
This is the typical
Until
Ed
then, follow.
Person. Can't answer a question, deflects, and starts name calling and making it personal, okay? This is the way you behave.
I want to answer this number better.
They're really, now's not the time for an answer, like you said, we're in
Well, I thought that was a great question.
we're in the middle of the process. And soon this council will vote on that. And at that point, I think that would be, whoever that is, that would be the appropriate person to talk to about what the issues of the council.
No.
Okay.
The our job as a governing body is to govern, not to let our other people work with us. Yes, we do, but we should also govern. That's what being a leader is all about.
We're not capable of running.
Being a leader is telling people what the right way to do things is.
You mean like my way manage?
No, that's micromanagement.
It's my way, or it's not my way? What's my way to where? That's your discussion?
No, I thought, and I thank Councilman Wu for bringing that up, because I forgot about
And that's, and
it.
I feel that I've answered it.
I think that's very viable. I do, actually.
And how about the chief, what's budgeted for the new chief's position, his salary? Is that going to be?
Well, we really don't want to discuss that, because we don't know, you know, and also, well, this council will be voting.
That's in the numbers, right?
Yeah,
So what's in the numbers?
The current.
But I don't think that's information we want to put out there right now before we actually come to a decision.
There hasn't been anyone selected.
So just so that you know, the total salary and wage budget for the police is inclusive of, anything that's going to be, well, it's a chief, but it's also a number for overtime for, school guards, for, crossing guards, for, a potential, collective bargaining agreement negotiation. So there's a lot of things that are all in that one number. So, I mean, you can pull out the individual numbers, but it's all one budget at the end of the day. So it's also going to be contingent on where the collective bargaining lands.
So you're referring to budget worksheet. The breakdown would be this question. Right, so it's not just one number, it's a breakdown that has everything in it, and you then take it.
Correct. And it's based on the contract.
But where, in the past, those worksheets are always been available. Where did that?
He's talking about no, he's talking about the unit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can create those.
We
We didn't use it this year because it was a 50-page document and a 2-page document, or I can open up the extrapolate the 2-page document to about a 13-page document that has all the exact same information, except it's not a 40-page.
Right, so I'd like to see the order of the document. We skipped this step this year, right? In the past, we would have had a budget workshop meeting in one of February, or March, September, and April, and then we would actually come to this document. But this year, as all things are this year, they're very different. We're just getting proof of what you want to see, what you want us to see, and I would actually like to see those workshops. Make them available to actually, send it to the entire council, so I think the entire council. And then, I have another, and by the way, which are the in 2018, well, in 2018, we had a large uncollected tax appeal. Where is the tax appeal?
On the summary document, it should be,
On the second.
yeah, I can tell documents on the from there too, but it's, yeah, right, it's not too far away from the, computer that
You knock that down 150,000 from 250, and we have a very large pending that we're all aware of. I just want to find the logic that's included in that.
Well, the large tax appeal is large.
How large? Numbers?
The estimate's about $40 million. So, under any circumstance, you limit the $3 million cash in 1 year's budget, especially to pay something off that's been accumulating since 2008, 11 years into it. So the way to deal with it is we're going to have to, once we get the stipulation of settlement from the taxpayer attorney, pass a resolution to agree and authorize the settlement, then we can start the process of going to the finance board and asking them to spread it out over a number of years to even impact $3 million in 1 year, $1,000 a year. It's not something that we get.
You know, there's a logic here that's over 250, 2008, one budget and tax bill, 100,000.
Well, the logic is, if we're going to go to the state, there's a big appeal. If there's any other ancillary appeals as well, we can package them together and spread them out. As opposed to taking them. But incrementally, if you're going to 3 million or 3.2 million, you're going to spread it out over a period of years, 6, 7 years, whatever the state allows us to. Then just need less money.
In terms of gas and presentation,
Well, the Beauty of New Jersey's statutory base county is not Gatsby, it's not Gatsby,
it's New Jersey.
it's the one out of 50 states that has a statutory base of its own base account. And these are, we've dealt with tax appeals in this state this way, the larger ones, and they gave Atlantic City 25 years to pay back all the casino taxes. But the numbers were just so ginormous that Atlantic City couldn't deal with it. Here, $3 million and change means nothing.
My main issue is, are we doing it consistently with how we did it last year? There was that something in
So you had 250 last year, and this year that 250 is reduced to 100.
using the same methodology.
Well, we're not, well, the issue is that you haven't dealt with that one large tax appeal that has now come to a head, and you have to deal with it.
So I thought in the 250 last year, we had some portion of that in
You might have thought you did, but you ended up not.
And last year, we were told that we could 20. Yeah, no, so this year, we I think we made it 33.
But you were here last year as well, or very similar to the other that we've done.
That was, I think, we took some years or a couple of years ago, I think, set it off, by the time it comes to fruition, you're not going to have enough to pay off, taxes, and you'll have enough to pay off the $1 million taxes. I would recommend going to, local finance board, that $1 million tax, or $3 million tax, completely different, the realm that you're dealing with.
That number blew us all away. We all thought it was 1.2 or 1.1 million dollars, and then we came back with $3 million. That is the change.
It just seems that, the public is looking at this number, it's not a true representation. Where can I find so it's not in here. So I know you guys, this is always a hot button number. I know you guys want to talk about it. When is that number?
We can't hear.
He said it was the same as last year, 300,000. I think it's like,
This document says 262,900, right? Is that, am I looking at it incorrectly? This summary document.
The total police salary wages.
Police,
I'm not sure, oh, that, he is other expenses.
that's under, that's under the city.
Left overtime.
so for my purposes, that is really comfortable with anything else asked, think. All right, we can open to the public, all right? I have a motion to do that. Second. All in favor? Okay. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak on the budget, preferably, but you're not limited to that, you can just raise your hand, permit me to recognize you. I don't believe so.
No, it's only budget items. It's a special meeting you got to
Raise your hand and let me recognize you. Just come up to the microphone. You could actually move over. State your name and address. Yes.
I'm Mary Moshe, 12 Irving Avenue. I have a couple of questions. The money that was paid out for the retirements of the police officers for this year is in excess of $500,000, close to $600,000. Is that in the budget to be paid? Anybody can answer that knows the question, answer. Well, who could hear you, what you talked about? That's why I'm asking the question. No, I'm saying, who could hear you? So, you said he talked about it, but I couldn't hear anything that was being said up here. It was all mumbles. Okay, yes.
So what we said earlier was that it is going to go to a special emergency appropriation, which allows me to spread the cost over 5 years.
And that's going to cost us interest and bonding?
No.
No, what is it going to cost us?
If we borrow the money, it would cost us just interest per year.
Right,
Short-term.
okay. So we're going to pay interest on top of the $600,000. But in the past, I think we had been paid it out of current funds. We didn't bond it or borrow it, we paid it for the previous years.
So we've had special emergencies in previous years.
What?
We've had special emergencies in previous years as well.
Not for that purpose though, right?
Absolutely, in 14 and 15. 14 and 15.
That was before my time. We didn't do it that way.
Okay.
We always pay that. Those funds, just under the cost fee that we don't borrow.
Right, I mean, we should pay it, not borrow for it. We shouldn't borrow.
The other option is to put it in the budget, then you can raise taxes.
I'm not saying the taxes go up, but if we paid it out of the current budget in the previous years, we should be paying it out of the current budget now, okay? I think that, possibly we wouldn't be as, generous in some ways as we had been, by allowing certain things in the retirement packages that were not under contract or supposed to be there, all right? You gave Chief Chiaffi, payment for personal days in like 20-something days. You're not supposed to get paid for those. There's other things that you gave him that you weren't supposed to, but you did, and that's taxpayers' money too. So, also, now with the, when you were talking about the large tax appeal, I know from some of the resolutions in the past regarding tax appeals, you gave the property a reduced rate for the following year, and something the next year when you reduced the amount of the assessment, so that you actually didn't have to give them all cash. When you're talking $3 million, that you're not giving $3 million to the claimant.
It's really 6 of one, half of the other. If you give them credits going forward, then your collection percentage reduces and you have to increase your income tax.
Right, but you're also not paying interest on it, and you're not paying bonding fees and attorney fees and everything.
There are bonding fees. There's a special emergency, it's a resolution. If you borrow the money, you go out the gas fund account, if it's involved, it's a couple $100. We're not talking about a lot of money. What we're talking about here is a way to deal with the issue that has to have to be dealt with at the least possible exposure to the taxpayer over a period of time. Part of the conversations we've had, Chris, Debbie, myself, is that once some of the litigation is done and a significant amount of legal fees that are in this budget, that were in last year's budget, go away, we're in a much better position to be able to afford paying off the tax appeal over a period of time, paying off the cumulative absences over a period of time, without having a significant negative impact on the home.
Well, I know, I don't see legal fees going down, because you gave Mr. Marinello an extra $5,000 a month for 10 months, and you also hired Mr. Wunsch for $10,000 for 2 months, and I don't know, he's over $70,000 now, and he's not even a municipal attorney. So I don't see legal fees going down when you have all the favored sons getting more money. Also, I'd like to say that I'm very disappointed with the council and the council finance chair for a lack of transparency in the budget process. I've been coming to budget meetings from maybe 15 or 20 years, and this is the least transparent of any budget period that I have witnessed. I've gone to the meetings where the department head would come in with a wish list, sit with the council, and the chairperson, the liaison, whatever you want to call the council person, working with the department head, presenting to the council, and everything would be discussed, whether it was how many tires they were going to buy for the police cars, or they were going to buy cameras, or whatever you were going to do for each department. And you would be working off of the worksheet, although the public didn't get the worksheet. One or twice, Mr. Carson allowed members of the public to look at the worksheet and then hand it back at the end of the meeting so that we could follow the discussion. Okay, at this point, the public doesn't know anything about your budget. And besides the fact you cannot hear you when you're talking up here because everybody talks like in a whisper. Okay? So, I think it was very non-transparent, very closed door, and you should have had multiple meetings with the different departments and had them available to the public so we could know what's going in the budget, which we do not.
Thank you, Board Councilwoman.
You're welcome. Soon to be gone, Councilwoman Faulkner.
Is that not money?
I know, that's right. So
Yeah,
soon
because
to be
people
gone.
like you, all you do is criticize.
And you sit up there laughing your ass off.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next.
Okay,
Resident who would like to speak.
Just so I'm clear, what the resident was speaking to was the emergency,
Every meeting.
no, for the emergency.
And again,
I-
Office of Mira is in that emergency appropriation also. And that was something that the previous council,
Should not be in there.
he's in there.
You know, emergencies are not things that you know in advance about. Anybody else from the public wishing to be heard?
Maria Valari, 45 Jane Drive. I have to tell you something. As a taxpayer, I would rather see my taxes go up and have some transparency in what you people are doing. It is clear to me, as it will be to a lot of people, that you are lowering your bottom line so that you can run on we can raise your taxes. And you know what? I don't appreciate that. And by the way, borrowing money and just paying interest doesn't make the principal go away until you actually make a payment towards principal. So what you are doing is just pushing it down the line, and you are building up the debt for this town, and eventually we will have to pay all that back, and the taxes will be even higher than maybe if you address these issues. And Ms. Park, please, that's very rude of you. I know you want to go home to your husband, but that's rude for you to be smirking and laughing up there. You are an elected official, and you should behave as such. I am really concerned about what's going on here, because you know what? This is fairyland. To me, this is like, oh, well, you know what? We'll borrow the 600, we'll pay the interest down the line, we'll be able to pay the 600. Meanwhile, we don't know what's going to happen between now and when that 600 is due. And how many other 600s will we have to borrow to continue all the expenses that this town is incurring in lawsuits? And if you think that maybe lawsuits are done, then you really are living in fantasy land, because you continue, excuse me?
I think it was a recent lawsuit.
Excuse me, I'm talking, ma'am, you are the rudest individual I've ever met in my life. You never learned manners. Okay, and that's enough, okay? Stop talking while I'm talking.
No, yeah, you know what, that finish, Mrs. Valari, because I would like to say something after the fact. Okay.
I'm concerned about what you people are doing, and I want to see some transparency. If you, in the past, have gone over and met with people and decided on budgets, I know when I was on the Board of Health, that did happen. And I want to know why you are throwing away all the rules and regulations to make it look like you're lowering our taxes, when in fact, our taxes will go up year after year after year, and these amounts will be, excuse me, no, do not,
Made it clear
oh my God.
not to go up this year. So if you want to blame somebody, talk to him. I think we did a pretty good job on this one.
Well, I think lowering the lines of what you have, why don't you just keep what's in the budget from the past? Did you hear when you did this before? It was during the Parisi years. What years were that? Was that 2008, 2000, what was it? So why are we going back to that?
I'm not living in the past, we're living in the future.
No, you are living in the past. You are living in the past. And you should be considering the homeowners.
I suggest you run for council and sit up here and do...
All right, thank you, Ms. Sabari, for your suggestion. I can always count on you for really sound advice.
Yeah, right.
Okay, just to pick up on a point that Mr. Barber
Get up to make a statement, I have to give...
Yes, I did direct her to not raise taxes. And that was all possible without paying over $1 million out to people who didn't... No, let me finish my... It was all possible without paying Chaffee, Regan, and all these other people worth of money. Well, I don't agree with the emergency aspect of it. I'm
Well, how would
sorry.
you suggest we do it?
Pay that at cash flow. Anybody else? We don't have that yet.
What does that mean we don't have that?
Anybody else wish to be heard? Yeah.
Motion to close?
No, there's a hand up. So, wait, let the public speak. Went over that?
It's okay, I can speak up. I'm standing next to Mary, so perhaps she'll be able to hear me. It's
No,
okay.
you have to put it down, to start in the middle, the poll, right, the poll in the middle.
It's okay, I'll talk, it's okay. It's all right. Comment. The T-Land set, oh, thank you. Karen Geiger, 270 Alfred. The T-Land settlement, I was somewhat concerned. Last year, I raised the fact that the audit statement was the first time that we as residents saw that there was a liability to T-Land, and at that point, it was estimated to be between $1 million and $1.5 million. When you look at the settlement online, in the court documents, you can see that the settlement was from 2008. I'd like to know why, in the past, no money was put aside for this. You talk about transparency, you talk about not bonding because you think that's inappropriate. Why did the prior mayor and council, knowing that there was a liability in excess of $1.2 million, not put more than $250,000 away, one, and given the size and the enormity of this transaction, why did we not know until now that it would be of this magnitude? Because this is clearly 3 times what was anticipated by the auditor in the financial statement last year. That's my first question. Does anybody know?
Well, and I wasn't here in 2008, but the number that we got was from our tax appeal attorney. So, I mean, even the auditor took that information from the attorney, which is who I'm not going to tax court every day. So, the other part of that is there's hundreds of appeals that never get approved, they never get settled. So we wouldn't just off the bat assume that we have $1 million liability just because somebody filed in tax court.
But this tax appeal was approved by the appellate division of the court in 2008. It's a different one? Oh.
Same property, 50 years.
Okay. So this is for all the years after. So why did the tax rate not get reduced to reflect the 2008 amount? The assessment.
I'm sure that it did. I don't have the history of it.
I mean, it's just an egregious amount to be hit with at one time, and I don't understand why there was no preparation made either in reducing our assessed valuation of those properties to the 2008 level at some point from 2008 till now.
Since 2008, I don't think I understand that the county did a revaluation and put a number on the assessment on that property. That's the number that got appealed by them. I don't know that much about the history of the tax appeal except to say that when I came to work in early March, I received a phone call from prior year's taxes. And was approved in March. Up until that point, 2018 tax return continued on until
Right.
early March.
received a call from him telling me that they had reached a tentative settlement, and that I know we're not, I'm a little hesitant to talk to them about it, because we're not selling this.
I understand that.
But the numbers that came out of that discussion between prior tax attorney and the plaintiff's attorney are what led to this proposed agreement. So it's not, I don't have a lot of history with this, and neither does the current tax attorney, who's getting himself up to speed on this, and he can make a proper recommendation. But a lot of this, all of this really came out of, I guess, the last year's worth of settlement negotiation between the Brandon tax attorney, Eric Linsky's office, and
I have another question moving on from that. In 2015, I believe, I guess this is the last year you were here, Mr. Wilcox, there was a negotiated emergency financial, you went to the local finance board for approval to do a bond issue for tax appeals, which was about 1.2 million, 1.5, I don't remember, it was in that vein. So this bonding for tax appeals is standard practice, and going to the local finance board for approval to spread the debt out over multiple years as opposed to hitting residents with one large number and then down is a standard common practice in government. Is that not true?
It is when the numbers are like...
As opposed to 100,000, 200.
Right, and the average impact, if we pay the $3 million all in 1 year, $1,156 for the average residential.
That's the whole one at 1.3 million. Is that still the same number? It's 1156. And as I recall, I'm sort of still remembering the first year in 2016, we had an emergency appropriation for $295 in December of 2016. Is that not correct? Right, that became known after. So the process of emergency appropriations for items that become known during the budget year but are not budgeted for is not an odd thing.
No, and so, yeah, you have to, you would have to wait until after the budget is out to get the emergency and something like that.
Right, the last time you had $362,000, that became $295, and you did an emergency appropriation in December and did a short-term note in December, and then paid it back the following year. That's what happened. So I just want to make sure that the process is not that different. It's just the subject matter of what's being bonded or what's being done in emergency appropriations is.
I believe you're missing the timing of it.
Oh, I'm not missing the timing of it at all. Please, it's my, excuse me, I am speaking. It's not a matter of whether it's an emergency. You knew in March of 2016 that you would have these tax appeals of $295. You did not, I have the paperwork for it. You did not budget for them. Instead, you waited and put in an emergency appropriation in November. It was turned down by the local finance board, so you redid it in December, and which time you issued short-term notes. So that is exactly what happened. So please don't correct me on that. I know my facts on it. And they've been corroborated by the auditor to the local finance board. So let's move on. The other thing I'm concerned about is the comment that was made about paying for and grouping, basically bonding or doing short-term notes or in some way putting together various police settlements. First of all, my understanding is that these are all contractual settlements and are no different from the contractual settlement that was offered to Mr. McMorrow when he retired. Now, I want to know, are there any other police officers that retired in 2016 and 17, Chris? Or is Mr. McMorrow the only person?
Police officers that we had somebody in DPW that retired.
Mr. Police, there was just a single police officer who was paid his accumulated contractual amounts, and that was spread over 3 years, I believe. That was part of the agreement. So spreading the retirement benefits for police officers is also not unusual to spread it over 3 years, as practice is in this community.
Correct.
Okay, so you only had one then. How many police officers did you have now with Chiaffi, Regan? Is there anybody else, or is just the two of them? And Mira. So there were 3 officers that, and you have the residual on McMorris, so you have quite a larger hit than you've had in the past. Is that correct? Okay, I just wanted to understand the dynamics. Thank you.
That was all very nice. However, the issue was Chief Chiaffi wasn't entitled to the money you rewarded him with. So, yes, of course, everything that happened after follows the normal course of events, but giving him that money in the first place, $700,000, was inappropriate.
Anybody else?
Carol McMorrow, 489 Summit Street.
Mr. Barr, you have a question. I just want to show you that on hand. This is what was given to, what we worked off of for 3 years. Excuse me, you're the finance chair, I'm just saying what the council worked on. And I'm just making a statement, it's not a discussion, I just want to show. And this is what the administrator, Ms. Steinell, made up for every council person, this entire book. I know everybody up here.
And the mayor.
And the new ones. Right. So, was that make this up for you guys?
No.
So, oh yeah, we got one, Gloria. You did. You did get it, because it was carried here and it was okay, that's an insult, and you did get one because...
That's not fair.
It was,
Everybody got I made sure everybody got everything.
Okay. Every budget workshop, you did, Gloria. We carried it here for you.
So let's just stop it. This is the way it's been done this year. And this way seems to be a flat tax, and the last it's been increased, so maybe this is going to work out, maybe. Let's see.
What would you propose? Once again, you have comments.
I'm the mayor, I haven't received work papers.
You've got no solution. You have this budget for 3 weeks, you haven't asked
I'm
one
looking for
question.
work papers. I figured you'd bring
Not
them
one
tonight.
question.
I thought you'd bring the work papers
Not
tonight.
one question.
Aaron, it's okay, at least we're aware that you want taxes to go up, and you don't want us to keep them flat or...
I was the one that demanded it not go up.
The tax video, like, there.
Yeah.
You rather put it on the book for...
Okay, I believe the resident has the floor.
And Ms. Clark.
The resident has the floor.
Okay, for the record, the books were carried. I carried it with Catherine. Gloriana didn't come to the office to pick it up, and we were gracious enough to carry their books here for them. Everybody got it. I'm disappointed. It's bad enough the public doesn't know what's going on, but to listen that Councilman Wu and the mayor don't know the salary of what the proposed chief is, and you don't want to tell him, this is not a secret, okay? No, it's not a secret. Okay, there's the breakdowns that everybody got every year of every person's salary. It's public knowledge, whatever you're thinking. To the council people, they have the right to know what you're thinking, okay? And yes, police officers' salaries are public, Ms. Sabari, so you really need to understand. Okay, okay, but they're asking basic questions. You didn't even want to tell them what the overtime is. You're telling them it's all tied together. You really... what I don't understand is... No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Who?
Chris said it was $300,000 the same as last year. I don't know if you were listening.
I did listen, but it was pulling, if you let me make my statement, in the audience watching, it's like pulling teeth to get any answer from the members sitting up there, not even us, because you weren't open to the public. So what I'm not understanding, if I could speak without being interrupted, it really is not appropriate. Okay, all right. This isn't a secret, and the council should know what's going on, line by line. You are almost halfway through the year. This has got to be the most irresponsible presentation of a budget that I've ever seen, okay? And
I don't understand transparency. Nobody even knows what they're talking about. You're talking about a capital budget, you want to still talk about it in meetings to come? You got to talk about it now. You're supposed to be collecting wish lists. Lizette, you know this. I did this with you in 2016. The wish lists from the department are supposed to be circulated to all the council members. And then you come to the meeting, your meeting's that's supposed to start in February or March, not May 29th, and you start talking about it then to see what you can do, what you can't do, and all of that. The contingency line, Chris, come on, you know better than what that answer was. That contingency line also was for the monies for the police officers that was in the contract that Mr. Aversa put together for the bank time. How much time do we have on the books banked that the police officers haven't cashed out yet? What's the liability? I know what it was when I left. Okay, can somebody get that number, please, for the next meeting? It was close to $200,000 when I left. I don't know what it is now, but that $50,000 contingency was to cover that as well, Chris, and you were adamant with myself, Catherine, and myself and Jamie, that you wanted money in that budget in case those monies were cashed in. Are you putting money in to be prepared for that if any police officers draw on that bank, which they have a right to do? I don't know what the number is, if it's 175 now, whatever it is. According to the contract, with no notice, they can just ask for full payment. You have knowledge of that. You can't do an emergency appropriation for that. We had 50,000 in that last year. Where's that 50? You should now, if we didn't use it, did we use it from last year, Chris? Okay, so well, somebody just said it's zero now. It went from 50 to zero. Well, you should put the 50 back, you should put another 50 in, so now you're at 100 if you have 175 liability. You know, that was the whole purpose we started that, Chris. We listened to you, okay? So, I advise, you all have knowledge. Now, I'm reminding you of it again. That was one of the reasons. You wouldn't have been at that conversation, Ms. Sabari, you weren't on the council then. Okay. What is the... You're rude. You're a really rude person. You really are.
You can come up here and reprimand.
No, I'm telling you that it's May, I'm saying it's May 29th, and you haven't had one meeting yet. What is the carryover
She didn't ask the question.
I did ask the question.
You're doing a bad job. You're not doing it the way I used to do it when I was on council.
I didn't say, we were...
Yeah, that's exactly.
I didn't say that. We were...
Exactly what you said.
I think the takeaway, and this is for Chris, because I'd like to just be consistent in one way or the other, no matter what the council wants.
Right, he was adamant about that.
Just be consistent, and don't get swayed by people's political opinions.
Okay. And by the way, you're a council of, it's a committee of 3. Lizette, I appreciated coming forward saying we did it the first year with only one person, committee of 1, committee of the whole with 1 chair, but we learned, and we all learned together, Ellen, that it's a committee of 3 and then a council. Okay, so you're all supposed to be working together, and that's all, and we worked together for the last 2 years. I thought we did anyway. Chris, what's the carryover liability of, you don't know, I asked, okay. Mr. Wilcox, respectfully, I don't agree with your philosophy of paying over a time period for accumulated leave. But you can do it, but you're increasing debt. So what you're actually doing, and if that's your choice, it's your choice, you have the vote. But, excuse me, I'm speaking to the council. You're proposing it, you're telling them they can.
For a $2 million park, and now we're talking about payout for taxes, and now you don't want to do that? I don't understand.
It's a separate issue, because this is...
It's not political.
No, this isn't political at all. I don't believe in incurring debt on a liability of a payout to an employee. That's like, we can have differences of opinion on how much of a mortgage you should have on your house. That's my belief, lower debt for those types of items. They're known items, and you know about it, and I believe that you should be preparing better. If not, and that's the way you want to present your budget, it's a smoke and mirrors unless you tell the public, hey, we're increasing your debt but we're spreading this out over this many years. If you're upfront and tell them the truth that we're increasing your debt by $600,000, then that's your choice. To correct Ms. Geiger, Mr. McMorrow's payout was over 4 years. It wasn't over 3 years. And by the way, I don't know who answered, Ms. Geiger. I think, Chris, maybe you weren't sure. There were just as many individuals that were paid out that first year. You had Danny Morrissey that retired in 2015. He was on the list, and so was Mealy. And I believe there was one other individual. We had a payment with Shalhoub. So we had 4 people as well, and we paid it. Okay? As for the tax appeals, how much is the liability besides CNBC? Like, other than the liability that we know, other than that, what are our tax appeal liabilities?
The exposure sheet that was provided from Bob McNerney, the rest of the appeals are pretty legit.
Okay, so there's not a substantial...
Nothing else that's big for you to have.
Okay, I'm just asking. Okay, the litigation, I know this is a hot topic because, what's the amount of litigation that you have attributed for the budget this year? How much money are you putting? What's the dollar number?
$1,350,000 is $550 in our legal OE.
Wait, I'm sorry, because 1,000,003?
Yeah, $550 in our legal OE line, and we've got $800,000 in our co-op OE line.
So so co-op, I'm going to keep that separate. Okay, so you're only putting $550 in the legal and the other stuff?
And then we also have additional funds for that number for the insurance payments for the insurance. $75 for additional lawsuits.
You had a very strong opinion last year about making sure that we had enough money in there for the litigations. Given the amount of litigations that we still have this year, obviously I heard the comments by Ms. Park, if you don't want to get sued, then you need to follow the rules. And with Oprah, and if you have any comments, you can write to Judge Farrington. She seems to have a very strong opinion about Annual Cliffs. And the Oprahs, the borough has issues with their Oprahs and how they're handling it. So, Chris, are you I'm not, Debbie, I'm speaking, please.
I want to answer your question.
No, I was directing it to Chris.
I did speak with, I did look at the current cases that we have ongoing. We did settle quite a few. And then the ones that are still ongoing, we've already hit our max, so we're only paying 30% of the legal bills, so that's how we're able to.
I appreciate that, but unfortunately, prerogative writs, and they don't fall under those, and you have many of those right now. The last thing I just wanted to bring to your, I don't think that's funny, Councilwoman Park. It's pretty serious, especially when you're losing them to the degree you are. I just think this is really important that the council needs to understand this. I only was able to see this because of an Oprah that I got from Mrs. Duffy about a week and a half ago. But you, it was in response to an Oprah that you gave to Mrs. Geiger. This is from Mrs. Geiger. So you provided her with the payouts for, there was none for for retired Captain Mura. There was one for Captain Regan. There was one for Deputy Chief McMorrow, and there was one for Michael Choppy. So I just was really taken aback when I saw certain things that you paid that I don't believe legally you had the right to pay. So whichever council, and I hope whoever did it the first of Mr. Marinelli, you weren't here, so it wouldn't have been you. This budget, it's money.
She requested, like what Mrs. McMorrow does, she opens all the orders. Okay. So Mrs. Geiger...
So does Mrs. Geiger, and so do other people, too. Okay.
So Mrs. Geiger had put in an Oprah, which I gave her, and then when Mrs. McMorrow put in an Oprah for all the Oprahs, Mrs. Geiger responds to that. Was it?
she's talking about. She's not talking about overs per se, she's talking about.
It's a budget item. This is money you're appropriating for debt, and I'm bringing this to your attention. Okay, on scheduled days, we paid Captain Regan 11 days, which was $8,675. The PBA contract is quite clear. Employees, and it's on page 70, Mr. Marinello, if you need to look it up to make it easy for you. Employees working a schedule of 5 working days, then 2 days off, will be compensated with an additional 15 days off per calendar year. The additional 15 days off must be used within the calendar year, and they may not be carried over or credited for compensation. So Mr. Regan should have never, I don't know who oversaw this, Ed, you're the chair? I know, but you all voted on it. And you're voting on numbers and not checking the numbers. So, whatever process, please, you need to be careful, right? Because you don't want to, now you're going to have to go back and do a new resolution. I don't know if you signed a contract. Well, actually, Ms. Duffy sent me that too, and I saw something in his contract, Mr. Marinello, I don't know if you're aware of it. It's never been done. They tried to do it with Mr. Morrissey, and they stopped it right away. He wants to get paid for hourly rates to go be deposed. That's like paying a witness what to say. We've never done that. It's not allowed. Now, that's a separate issue, but you need to look into that too, sir. To go on to Chief Chaffee. According to Chief Chaffee's paperwork, you also paid him for 16 scheduled days. That comes to $14,695.52. It's not in his contract. I couldn't find it. If any of you can find it, I've read it 4 times, I couldn't find it. Well, okay, but I'm going to give them all, go back and look and see, but I couldn't find it. They also paid him for 26 personal days. They paid him, his contract only says he can be paid up to 10, no more than 10. So you also paid him an extra 16 personal days, which comes out to $14,695.52. So you paid him a total of $29,391.04. How do you make mistakes like that? That's almost $30,000. Okay, so you need to... Well,
Right, you're part of the settlement, right?
you can't be paid for personal days and carry them over. There's no settlement. You've been going over and over that there's no settlement, that he earned this. It's not in the contract, okay? And Mr. Regan has it too. So, I would expect, on behalf of the taxpayers, that you're going to straighten out this mess and get those monies back, because they belong to the taxpayers. And, okay, I appreciate if you can have an answer by June, the June meeting, especially since you're in the middle of the budget. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Don't see anyone. Have a motion to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.